When you really think about it, you have to work really hard and put your logical faculty on hold in order to believe that inequality is a bad thing. By any objective measure, here in the US at least, we're way past the point where inequality of opportunity is a legitimate problem. What we're left with, let's be honest, is inequality of intelligence, inequality of work ethic, inequality of decision-making skill, which is definitely not the same thing as intelligence, by the way. And sometimes I think they're mutually exclusive. But yes, absolutely, inequality of good or bad breaks or luck. That's part of it. The left would have us believe that inequality is a uniquely human phenomenon enforced by a greedy few intent on keeping the rest of us down. Let's just set the record straight. Inequality exists in every form of life on Earth. You know why? Because there is no life without it. Life on Earth does not work without inequality. We are literally here to be unequal, and through that inequality, to help our entire species thrive and prosper, even perhaps and especially when that result is no part of our intention. Oh, but we don't mean that everybody should be exactly the same, really? Well, then exactly how equal should we all be? How should this equality be imposed? And who precisely should be in charge of imposing it? When you ask questions like this, you get answers much like the answers you get when you ask, how much taxation is enough? There's no answer, because inequality and taxation are beside the point. The point is that human beings are evil creatures whose behavior must be controlled by a select few, with those select few being, I guess, the only human beings in the history of the world who are not evil creatures. Logical quagmire doesn't quite cover it. Over the past couple years, we've been the unfortunate recipients of a real-world lesson in the life-saving features of inequality, and it's come in the form of COVID-19 vaccines. Now, hopefully, by now, it goes without saying, I think every individual should have the choice of whether or not to get vaccinated. That government intrusion into this very private decision is detestable. And that corporate intrusion into this very private decision is counterproductive and ill-advised. But the vaccines themselves, putting aside the politics, are a nice choice to have and have very likely saved a great number of lives. Not surprisingly, at least to me, the best and most efficiently distributed vaccines have come from the most unrestricted and unequal healthcare market in the world, the good old US of A. Even vaccine makers who have put other countries' brands on their products likely would not have been developed as well or as quickly without an outsized portion of those companies' profits being earned in the United States. Folks at Oxford University, who developed the AstraZeneca vaccine, and who, by the way, had their work heavily subsidized by those greedy capitalists in America, had an early lead in the vaccine race. And they had an opportunity to cement that lead through a partnership with Merck, one of the world's leading vaccine manufacturers. Now, the good folks at Merck, realizing that they live on the planet Earth, expected to make a reasonable profit from their work. But the folks at Oxford, apparently coming to no such realization, made it clear they expected no profit to be made on this product. No profit. They ended up teaming up with a company that would work for nothing. And the result was predictable. An avalanche of orders for the free AstraZeneca vaccine. The next development was just as predictable. The complete, absolute, and total failure by AstraZeneca to produce the vaccines it promised to make. AstraZeneca being sued by some of its prospective customers, and the greedy capitalist producing the formerly runner-up vaccine, Pfizer, stepping in to save the day. Now, here's the thing. During the period of time between when AstraZeneca was promising but not delivering, people were dying by the thousands. Many people who are now dead would still be alive if Oxford had chosen Merck to produce its vaccine instead of AstraZeneca. No invisible fist needed this time. The life and death consequences of this foolish decision are on full display. Of course, they're being ignored, but they are in fact on full display. And don't get me started on the Chinese vaccines. By far the worst of the lot. Even with China's standard fudged numbers, their so-called vaccines achieved an effectiveness rate just a shade above something that can even be called a vaccine. Thanks to the free market, we are getting to the point now that making enough Pfizer vaccines for the developing world is becoming less of a problem, and getting the vaccines to the developing world recipients more of a problem. Specifically, in some cases, a lack of freezers to store the products, a lack of roads to get the products to the people, and a lack of people who can manage these logistics. Now, it's not possible for the developed world to manage every single stage of this process for the developing world. And if they tried, they'd probably be called a bunch of racists. But shouldn't the priority be to encourage these countries in developing their own social systems, most likely to produce the type of infrastructure and expertise that would alleviate this problem? And many others, by the way. Perish the thought. The priority is obviously to tear down the systems that made the production of this vaccine possible in the first place, and to make sure that future vaccine production is slow, less efficient, and more ineffective. Now, in coming down on the side of supporting an option to have the vaccine, I sometimes find myself at odds with my fellow free market lovers. And I gotta tell you, it's really irritating. Not because there's anything wrong with their thinking, no, but because our feckless leaders have managed to turn an obvious lesson on what works best for humans into a cram down that can only alienate freedom lovers, along with, as it happens, more than a few freedom haters. And when those two stars are in alignment, you can be pretty sure there's something seriously wrong. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being human. See you next time.